Hello. Rocco, you're up first.
Greetings. Hey, nice to be on your space.
It's
Can you
not
give a
nice
little
to be on anything. We're here to talk shit. What do you want?
here to talk shit? I mean, is there anything specific, or is it just a general?
I think I think you're ill-equipped to be here. Return to listening, please. Thank you. Creative. Perhaps you live up to the name. Hello. Hello? Okay.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Yes, hello. Creative? You're on. Okay. We lost creative. Choostas? Man, is there one person who can operate the software correctly? Hello?
What's good, motherfucker? What we scamming today?
What are you talking about?
I don't know. What's the play for today? Like, I need some rugs. Are we gonna like pump up the price of like pharmaceuticals? Are we gonna ape the last like Wu Tang album? Like, what's the play?
Okay, so you're asking me what's the play?
Yeah, I need another DJT.
I really, you got to do better than that.
What do you mean?
I,
I need
I,
an,
I'm
I
here
need
to,
another 100x DJT right now, sir. What's the CA?
I am here to talk to people, and you're sort of babbling and not making sense.
You said talk some shit. You're brave. Now you're getting nervous.
I'm not getting nervous. I've never been nervous in my I've never been nervous in my life.
You sound pretty nervous, man.
I went to prison for 5 years. I've never been nervous. I'm definitely not letting some cartoon fuckface make me nervous.
Your heart rate's rising, sir. Do you need like a
Yeah,
glass of
because you're
water or some
pissing me
shit?
off. Your fucking non-accent is annoying the shit out of me.
Damn, man, you're getting triggers. I'm
Yeah.
just a fucking
No, you're
cartoon
triggering
frog.
me. Pray you don't trigger me further.
I'm just a cartoon frog, man.
I know.
Like, it's all right. Just smoke a joint, hit a line, you'll be fine.
I've never smoked a joint in my life. I'm not a loser like you.
That's probably why you're on edge.
No.
Why?
That's why I'm excellent. That's why I'm the pinnacle of excellence. And you're some pothead.
Okay. So what's the? I don't know, man. That doesn't sound like a bad thing. Look how much you're
You
engaging.
think weed is good for you?
Like,
You think
I
weed
don't
is
know.
good for you? You
In
fucking pothead?
in moderation.
In moderation?
Yeah,
What's so
like
great about weed? It lowers your intellectual capacity. It makes you slow and dumb. It is addicting.
but I'm
What
not
is the
the one
good part
on
here?
edge right now, am I, sir?
Well, if you prioritize not being on edge because you fear any amount of consternation or difficulty in life, perhaps you should smoke weed for the rest of your life. Just sit
But
there and lie down in a some kind of medical bed and just have the weed pipe directly into you. Why bother
you're
smoking?
literally not even saying words right now. But do you
No,
notice
these are words, my friend.
how
These are
much your
words, and they're
engagement's
not
gone
in
up since
some
I got here?
cockamamie fake accent.
Fake accent? How can
That's
I
a
fake
fake
an
accent.
accent?
I know it's a fake accent. It's a complete affectation.
He's never met a foreigner before. He's like, damn, that's a fake accent.
What
Oh,
kind of
you want
accent
me
is
to
that?
say,
That's just some
sound all
nonsense.
posh, sir?
That's just some
Fucking
nonsense
hell.
accent. That's just
Okay, sir, you found out my accent. It's not real, by.
complete affectation.
Which one is it?
It's an affectation. You put it on.
Brother, I don't know this word. Affection. I don't know what you say. Brother, please.
You can pretend to be stupid, or you can actually just be stupid because it's not that much of a difference.
Which one annoys you more?
Either either are fine. They're both annoying. Your presence is probably annoying to everyone around you.
I don't know. Like, you can let the audience decide.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
We,
All right, that was, I guess, an okay warm up. Anyone interesting out there? I think somebody got upset about my characterization of Anthropic CEO. I'd short Anthropic right now if I could. I don't think there's anything there. I think it's smoke and mirrors. Creative, do you have something to say this time? Still shy. Yes, no, maybe. Waste time. Arvik.
Hey, brother, how's it going? Thanks for letting me talk. Let's get some Pepe on up in this place. What are we doing?
What the fuck? Tom. Tom.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, okay, wow, great that I'm the one can operate the software. I keep asking Anthropic and Claude questions about medical stuff, and it always just refuses. Did you ever continue working on your medical
Holy shit, this accent's
assistant?
even worse than the last one.
German.
The you ask Claude, that's the Anthropic product, correct?
Yeah, and it always just says can't reply, can't help me. Just really annoying.
I mean, it's Anthropic. They signed. They're trying to get the AI SB whatever the California bill passed. They have agreed to cuck themselves before some fake AI committee in the U.S.
Yeah, but didn't you work on some AI web assistant that's specialized on medical things?
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm actually doing instruct fine tuning right now on Llama 3.1. So I'm looking.
Oh no! Okay, cool.
But yeah, I think it's kind of sad that if you look at OpenAI's like usage guide or terms of service, it's like more than 50% of all things are prohibited. Any tax or financial advice, any healthcare advice, any legal advice, anything sexual, that's at least 50% of GDP right there. So it's sort of a sad day when these tools limit our ability to seek truth.
Yeah, but I mean, it's even worse than 405B Llama, like the Llama, a newest Llama model. So I don't really get what their business model is at all. I mean, how do they want to compete?
They have to do something else, most likely. And you see that's what's happening. If you look at who they hired the old Instagram dude. So, I mean, there is a difference between product and technology, to be fair. But Meta's also very, very good at product. In fact, I would argue they're the best at product in the world, even better than Google. And so it's going to be very, very hard. I mean, Zuck said that by the end of the year, he's going to be the #1 chatbot, which is pretty wild considering I'm not sure I know anyone who's used it. But regardless, I do think it's hard to. It's going to be it's sort of a senseless business. I think Anthropic is valued at like 40 billion. I wouldn't pay 1 billion for that stock. And the CEO explaining that somehow biology is going to go 100x faster when biology is like literally a physical science. I hope he has a good robotics department.
Yeah. Any idea how Meta wants to monetize, how to make profit on the AI stuff? I mean, they're releasing it all open source.
I mean, there's a number of ways, but in general, I think that Zuckerberg's pursued a strategy of ensuring that his social media products are basically like an OS, and that within his OS, you can do the most important things that you want to do with the most advanced technology, whether that's fine-tuning a LoRa based on your face, or a Dora or something like that, where you can say, Martin, take me out of the picture. You and your brother can create customized, diffusion model generated photos of yourselves doing things that perhaps you couldn't do in the real world, like this is me slam dunking a basketball on your mutual friend's head or something like that. And that'd be a very cool feature to have within an Instagram or within a Messenger or something like that. So I think he's not pursuing this line of technology for its own sake. I think he's doing it because he thinks it's got an ability to enhance content creation. He's in the business of hosting content. And when you're in that business, you want to give your content creators as many tools as possible so they stay on your platform instead of, say, YouTube's or someone else's. So I think it makes sense what he's doing. But yeah, it's going to have some collateral consequences, like, this chatbot's better than that chatbot, et cetera. And I think he's should probably start thinking about reasoning more than the way they are now. And I think the fact that people know.
Yeah, but I mean the new Llama model, I actually read the paper, and they are working a lot on reasoning. I mean, the newest Llama model even has a lot of agent behavior trained into it. Like, you don't need an agent framework, but it automatically does the reasoning steps, the tool calling, and so on.
But it's still more of the same old. There's nothing groundbreaking, I don't think. And I think that kind of stuff probably will come from an OpenAI or even an Anthropic, just something, totally.
I really hope they get into robotics. I mean, it can't be that hard to train a foundation model just on a lot of behavior, on motion, and so on, and then fine tune it on the behavior you want. I mean, just give them what they are capable of doing with language.
I think anytime you go from the world of bits to atoms, everything slows down logarithmically. It's just not that simple.
It sounds simple. I think a GPT-4 or Llama should be able to fold my T-shirt or stuff like that, just giving robotic arms. But yeah.
But does Llama need to do that? Can it be done by, I guess Tesla Robotics or Boston Dynamics or some other robotics focused.
Yeah, well, but Boston Dynamics only has the robots have no intelligence whatsoever. So I mean, I think the really limiting factor is really just the intelligence.
Yeah, well, that's the limiting factor of all these models, right? I think there's still enormous limitations in reasoning, multi-step reasoning, and all kinds of abstract thinking. I mean, there's so many tests I'm sure you've seen that break these models pretty quickly. They can't do anything creative. They can't seem to learn over the long haul or form inferences from corpuses of data that they should be able to form inferences from. There's so many problems. So we're not anywhere near great intelligence yet, I don't think.
Yeah, but then again, I think if you would just connect a normal person to an API and would query them, would also determine that they are not that intelligent, that there's no AGI.
Sure, yeah. Although there's kind of a collective intelligence that comes from, say, this scholastic corpus that we built up in academics, even though 99% of that stuff's garbage too. So it's tricky, right? I mean, I think that in some ways we kind of don't know where to go given the limitations that we have. I see a lot on Archive lately about spiking neural networks and also, just different ideas. I think it has to be brand new and totally different, and I think it'll be more of a shot in the dark that comes out of nowhere than necessarily autoregressive or any other type of model that we know about. But we'll see. Who knows? It's fun to watch. Alligator, are you there? No.
How is nobody able to use that? I mean, maybe it's just really the app that's so shitty.
Yeah, probably a little bit the app. I don't know. Somebody invited me to some weird group chat, and then They didn't want to follow me into here, I guess. It's a shame.
It's my microphone.
Yeah.
Sal, what's up?
Faggot.
Test.
Okay. Alligator?
Okay, since nobody can actually use the app, some random questions about GLP-1. I mean, you wrote a few interesting posts about it. And do you think, like, is it actually that much work to just create molecules, to just assemble them? Like, it sounds easy for someone who has no idea about it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a concept of CGMP, or current good manufacturing practices, which are these set of rules that are promulgated by regulatory authorities, and they require kind of this painstaking quality assurance process that is very expensive. The actual manufacturing doesn't change, but the adherence to these standards is very difficult and
Okay,
laborious.
so like the NASA approach, like
Yeah.
space rocket approach, where you have to certify everything. Okay.
Yeah, and it results in still, very high margin product, but not free product.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make GLP-1 in a very crude form, you could do that, but then how do you package it as a pharmaceutical? Well, if this is something, as you know, it's generally given as an injectable drug. This is kind of a little bit dangerous without the correct kind of procedures, because you are injecting the product directly into the person, where you lose the gastrointestinal kind of gamut that drugs normally have to go through. You can, of course, make oral GLP-1, but it's very low bioavailability and also requires kind of careful thought. It's not your average medicine in a lot of ways. So, you could make it, 10x cheaper probably if you didn't use CGMP, but you'd still have some of those challenges of like fill finish for aseptic kind of delivery of a liquid. So you still have to consider how you want to use a preservative or not use a preservative and all these other things that are pretty hard about making injectable drugs. On the oral side, again, you're talking about delivering oral peptide, or at least peptide-like molecule. So, pretty difficult to do under normal circumstances to do orally. So, generally going to have large PK variations when you do that, and it's so this specific drug isn't a great example, but in general, drugs do cost money to make because of the quality assurance process more than anything else. But sometimes it's raw materials too. I mean, depends on how many steps the synthesis is, depends on how complicated it is. If it's a clean small molecule with a couple step synthesis, you'll have like 99% margins.
Yeah, I mean, with all of these steps involved, I mean, they're not perfect, right? I mean, there will be some deviations, maybe some reactions don't fully work. How dangerous is it if it's not completely pure? Because I order a lot of stuff online, and I'm never really sure how good the quality assurance is. Like, they often say it's 99% sure, 99% pure. But what about the rest? Like, is that a huge issue?
I don't think so. I think that obviously if we're talking about making the drug like in our basement or something, I do think you're going to have lots of impurities and yield and mistakes and all kinds of things like that. And you need an ability to characterize. That's the whole idea, right? Is you're supposed to characterize any impurity more than 0.1% and quantify and qualify what that impurity is, and even do toxicology on it just in case. But in the research chemical space, I think they pretty much, get fairly solid product. Again, it's not intended to be consumed by humans, but it's nevertheless is kind of a poor man's pharmaceutical that hasn't gone through QA, basically. And there's a lot of raw API that you can get from, chemicals companies. For example, when I was developing intranasal ketamine, we ordered just kilograms and kilograms of ketamine, and we had it in a warehouse, and it's just like, it didn't cost anything. It was like $35 for a kilogram or something.
Oh wow.
It's a very dangerous scheduled drug, but we have a pharmaceutical import license, and it was actually extremely easy. So it was actually a German company that sent it to us, and so under the guise of research, you can basically do whatever you want.
All my chemicals I'm purchasing have the label research chemical on it. So I know. And maybe one last question. Don't want to fill up the space, but I read a lot about very new drugs like nefiracetam and so on. And I mean, there's some human testing sometimes, but in general, I'm not sure like how likely is some substance to kill me. Like,
I'd say very unlikely.
Okay.
You never say never, but we're all pretty sturdy, and typically by the time of some drug or something is causing you severe distress, you probably stop taking it or go to the hospital or something like that. So it's unless it has some like weird I don't know, cyanide metabolism or something, it would have been seen in animals or other humans already. So
yeah, I mean, the nefiracetam I was talking about causes cancer in dogs, but apparently in humans it's fine.
Yeah, that's different. And when you do some of these toxicology studies, you're really trying to see toxicity. So you're doing very large doses and things like that to try to know what the worst case scenario might be.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, I don't know why you want to experiment with unapproved medicine, but God bless you.
Well, the thing is, with approved medicine, you need approval from a doctor to get it. Like all of the unapproved stuff, all of the research stuff, you can just order online.
I understand, but why would you want to use a drug that's not FDA approved or not approved by
Well, I mean, a lot of the nootropics, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm taking is approved. Like even have like, for example, for any recitam, they have studies on humans, a lot of them.
The anti-epileptic drug?
No. It's like any recitam. It's like a racemic drug.
What's it approved for?
I think they're doing trials for ADHS.
Hold on. Trials are different from approval, right?
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if it's already approved for something, but it's like a lot more legit than a lot of the other stuff that I'm.
What do you think this drug
read
does? What do you think this drug does for you?
It's motivational. It enhances focus.
You think so? Or
no. It really does. It's like that's not placebo.
Is there a clinical trial where I check a box that says no, it really does, versus doing a clinical trial?
I mean, it does enhance focus. I think like the question is just like.
How do you know? You didn't do a clinical trial, did you?
No. I mean, I just ordered it and it works for me. And also, like, it's just a really popular smart drug. So it's not like some of the really.
Maybe you're tricking yourself into thinking it works when it doesn't.
I don't think so. Like a lot of people on Reddit say it works, and that's a trusted source.
Why do you think Reddit is a good substitute for the clinical trial process?
I mean, I care about clinical trials, but when it comes to toxic, like to dangers and.
Well, dangers are one thing. Obviously, I don't think this class of medicine is dangerous in general, but if you wanted to figure out if you're wasting your time and money, you could do some kind of test. You could actually get a placebo, put, 50 pills in a bottle, that are real and 50 that aren't, and then use that. There's a human benchmark website where you can.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at a lot of that stuff. Like, what I'm doing is I'm logging it, like how much I take at what day,
And
and then I do correlation analysis.
You would have to do this with like 2,000 people probably to see an effect, because I think the effect, if it exists at all, is very small, and I'm skeptical that it exists at all.
No, I mean the effect on me, the effect is pretty large. Like
Then prove it. Show quantitatively that it's large. I think that'd be an interesting piece of content at the very least, and more scientifically reasonable than just saying, "Oh, I subjectively kind of feel this keeps me focused." Some people feel the same way for nicotine. Some people feel the same way for these other things, but when they actually do the trials, the outcomes are very low. There's a famous study where they gave chess players modafinil.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about that. Yeah,
caffeine or a placebo, and there was very little difference in performance.
Then again, I mean, chess players, if you're those probably are well-functioning people already. I think like all of the nootropic smart drugs are people who have not optimally calibrated brain function.
Yeah, that's possible for sure. I mean, I'm generally skeptical of so-called nootropics, but I do think that it's a lot more likely to restore normal cognitive function than to create some kind of enhanced cognitive function.
Yeah. You ever tried modafinil?
I've never tried it.
Yeah.
I was the company that made it. I was very close to, in the pharmaceutical industry. And
Never consume your own product. I get it.
No, not it was their product, not mine. But I was just very close to the company that sold it in the U.S. I guess it was actually created by a weird French company called La Fond. Some like mysterious small company.
Yeah, it's so weird that like almost none of the European companies are able to grow.
To do what?
To grow, to develop into multi-billion companies nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, some of them have, AstraZeneca, GlaxoSmithKline, Sanofi. There are a few others, but Novo Nordisk is the second largest drug company based in Denmark. So Bayer, of course, in Germany is doing a good job of making itself smaller. But, I think you're right that most of the innovation is somewhere else.
Yeah, sad.
Yeah, it is sad. And in tech, it's even more pronounced. In tech, there's basically nothing out there.
Yeah, I mean, the tech hurts even more. I mean, I could live with it if there was like a 10x difference between Europe and the United States. But it's like nothing in Europe.
Even in the U.S., there's a difference between San Francisco and everywhere else. It's it kind of feels kind of crazy just being in New York, which is often considered the second best city for technology. That just how ahead of everyone San Fran is. So I kind of feel like the Europe of the U.S.
That's comforting.
Being the real Europe must be really depressing.
Yeah, but then again, it's like we're so far behind that we're not really participating in the game. I mean, it's kind of over.
It's a weird, different socialist game. It's so bizarre. I don't see how it possibly could end well. And
I feel like they like not having any big companies because they would challenge the state and the government, would have some influence.
We're gonna have a second Marshall Plan where like Google and Apple bail out Europe or something.
Yeah, or they just buy it outright and don't have to pay taxes once they have taken over. I mean, there was this plan of that Google or Apple theoretically could create their own state, right?
Hey, Martin, I wanted to talk to you about a project I've been working on.
What's up?
Yeah, so I work in philology,
Yeah.
in the history of the use of words, and one thing that AIs are actually very good at is picking
I'm very
apart.
pro AI for what it's worth. I run a software company.
Yeah, no, totally. But I mean the text processing capabilities are very strong,
incredible.
and just to take examples of what I've done, like I found 18th century classical Arabic dictionaries that are printed on basically hand calligraphy, and open source Tesseract can maybe OCR it to like 80-90% fidelity, but it's enough to extract out the original classical Arabic citation, the source of it, and then the AIs have enough training by just condensing down Wikipedia plus to then find the source. They know about the author on the basis of Wikipedia, and then they can tell you the story of the use of that citation, knowing about the book. And so you can just pull out literally millions of these buried citations in classical Arabic, Hebrew, Greek, Latin. It's really a golden age for classical learning.
That's interesting. Huh.
And what's so
And just
special
to
about
speak a
that?
little bit more kind of technically about why it works and how it's kind of interesting in a different way. Another source I've used, which are similar to the dictionary entries, are quotation books, like basically Bartlett's quotations, but there's many hundreds of years histories of these compendiums people made of sayings, proverbs, what have you. All of those citations, a human being very carefully selected them enough to print them, and so it's good copy. The content is salient, important. And so basically you are kind of reviving or bootstrapping on top of these long dead scholars, as far as selecting out what's important, which is a different grade of quality than a Reddit up arrow. You're not wrong, though, when you do say, I mean, when you say 99% of scholasticism is kind of worthless. I mean, this is kind of the problem of modernity. Exactly what, if anything, we can make use of in the history of learning, philosophy, religion, literature. It's kind of a hard sell. But there is this interesting kind of gate between us all being flattened into technical processes, and then the mass digitization of everything, which is sitting there just inert. And if Google were a real company, they would have figured out a way to do something more than just scan and then leave dormant everything in Google Books. But no one seems to have done that, and none of the education applications of AI are anything more than glorified, get a
I would
job
imagine.
by doing well
I
at
would imagine
school.
at some point they'll use that for training data if they haven't already.
Yeah, well, you can actually empirically tell very well what they've trained on or not, by tracing out which of the citations they know
Right.
about and which one they're just
It's
making
it's funny.
shit up.
I have this challenge with PubMed right now. PubMed is around 35 million, maybe more, PDFs, and PDFs are
Hmm.
so OpenAI and these other companies haven't trained on the PDF contents because you can tell they have trained on the
Yeah,
abstracts, and the
right.
abstracts are not they're not the papers. But
Sure.
and sometimes there is no abstract, and certainly they haven't trained on books. Those are generally PDFs as well, and they're not generally easily available. Even if they are, the web crawler doesn't take them in, and they don't.
hmm
I mean, they could easily parse PDF. It's just that they don't. There's a famous paper
Sure.
called "Textbooks is All You Need," and I think it was Microsoft's. If it was it Fee or was it a different model they made? Either way, it was like this very, very strong model that was just trained on textbooks. And I think this is a pretty smart strategy, honestly, but there's all kinds of methods to try to take, like Llama 3.1, for example, and have that read the source material and then come up with instructions to train another model with. So I think we're going to see like a pretty good golden age for this kind of stuff. I'm doing one on epilepsy just as a kind of like test case, and seeing if I can make an epilepsy GPT that beats an eval better than some of the other models out there. That's just trained on like extremely subtle and extremely esoteric kind of data on epilepsy. I mean, the models can tell you a bit about epilepsy right now, but some of it's not like a world-class physician or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see if you can build things like that or not. There's a recent example from Harvey where Harvey AI put out its own like big law eval, because some things are not evaled well with multiple choice, right? Like if you were gonna write an epic poem and tell if it was really written by Homer or something like that. It was Homer's long lost poem. You'd want something that could eval that a lot better than a multiple choice. But this is a little bit of out of my comfort zone. I've not done too many of these, but I think we're getting into an interesting place where like this custom scoring of LLM outputs is brand new. I don't know much about classics either, but I think it is an interesting use case.
Have you noted that in the by actually providing the PubMed article on a specific very focused aspect of what have you, diabetes, that it's able to meaningfully reason better once it actually has the substrate text as kind of just text prompted fake fine tuning?
So like in context learning, I think there's a lot of bias that comes from the already trained model, right? So there's you have to juxtapose the prompt with the training, and those are always in conflict, I think, and it's really hard. Like there's something missing. Sometimes I can't put my finger on what it is. Sometimes it's like just deductive reasoning. Sometimes it's more analogical. Sometimes it's just like complete buffoonery, and sometimes it's right. So it's not always wrong.
Totally.
But it's just a lot of it is just lacking this humanness. It's hard to explain, but it's just this quality of knowing when to ask the right question and not go astray. It's just not easy. Anyway, I want to kind of keep this moving.
Hey, Martin.
Cool.
I have a question. So first off, the web app doesn't work if you try to talk on that. Second, do you know why Germany's studying Twitter web app? I have to use my iPhone.
Oh yeah, the web app sucks.
Do you know why Germany's decommissioning all these nuclear power plants?
I did a thing on Pirate Wires about that with Mike Solana. If you catch the Pirate Wires podcast, we talked about that for like 20 minutes. I don't know anything about nuclear, but it is fascinating to see it. I really don't know what the genesis was of doing it, but it's obviously our kind of synthesis of it was that Europe's just committing suicide in slow motion.
Yeah, I think
I can tell you why they're doing it if you're interested.
Sorry, what was that?
I can give some information on that. So when Chernobyl went up and all of the nuclear fallout came, like the cloud came over Europe, like the rain came down over Germany, and still like the forests and so on are so contaminated that you can't hunt and eat the flesh, but you have to scan it for radiation and so on. You often have to just throw it away because it's so radioactive still.
How do they deal with it in the Ukraine or in Russia or in more proximal areas?
I think it's not even that bad for them because it didn't drain down there, or like not that much if you were farther away from the reactor.
I don't buy this at all. But okay, because like Bulgaria, or not Bulgaria, Belarus, Finland, these are countries that are much closer. So I guess
but they were much closer. But it drained over Germany. That's where a lot of it came down, and I think that's where a lot of the trauma is coming from. That you don't know. Pedro, why are you disliking? I always see Pedro disliking. Maybe I'm just talking bullshit, but a lot of the I think it was just really traumatic when you suddenly have all of your surrounding being nuclearly contaminated.
You know what else is really traumatic? The Holocaust. I hope it rains more nuclear waste on you guys. It's karma. Karma for World War II.
Yeah, no, I was more so curious if it's possible to like run a startup around building nuclear plants. I imagine it. Wait,
Sam Altman's buying anything that moves in that space.
Yeah, because we have like 2,000 or 3,000 years worth of thorium we could use for nuclear fission. But yeah, at the same time, everywhere's decommissioning every single nuclear plant. So I don't know. Like we're gonna run out of energy soon, so I'm just kind of curious.
I don't know if it's soon, but I do think that, I mean, getting back to like what can LLMs do for the real world, I do think there's some opportunity for LLMs to synthesize the world's knowledge and come up with decent next steps. I just don't think those next steps will happen instantaneously, like Dario mentioned. But I mean, I do think a superhuman intelligence, I'd find it very interesting what they would think about what drug targets to go after. Similarly, I'm sure some energy guy would find it really interesting to think about, okay, well, what should we try for higher yields or for cleaner energy or whatever? And I'm sure there's some ideas there. But at the same time, we have some really bright humans. And, you know, we have some approaches, right? There's solar, wind, nuclear, number of variations on each of those. It's not my field, of course, but, you know, energy is not short of innovation. I mean, there's always, it's like the world's biggest market. Did you see this solar panel startup that's like beaming light using mirrors from the sun?
Yeah, but I heard it was fake, and in the demo they're using a drone.
Fake and gay? Okay.
Yeah. So not too bullish on it. And as far as I understand, the energy return on investment is negative for every single thing: solar energy, wind, even nuclear, because the cost to put up a nuclear plant and tear it down after 20 years, it's all negative. So the only thing we really have is oil. And the way oil comes about is it's just millions of years of plants sucking in energy from the sun.
Right.
And then we just burn it off. So I don't know. Like I think there's probably a lot of room to build a startup in the energy space right now. And do you remember Danielle Fong in like 2013 or 2015?
Yes.
She was doing something with storing energy in like air pressure, and I think she raised like 100 million and scammed everyone, bought a Tesla, something along those lines. So I don't know. I think there's still a lot of room in that area. Yeah, I was just wondering. I thought you might have known a little bit about nuclear energy.
No, I wish I did. It's just there's too many interesting things to learn about. That's definitely one of them. But I mean, I studied it briefly, like with tokamaks and like that whole like, you know, hot fusion container. But I never got that interested in it just because it seemed like this tremendously expensive contraption to do very little actual production of energy. But I'm sure someday we can do it, but I think the scale is the hard part, right? Like you actually like a small nuclear plant doesn't actually contribute that much energy to the grid. It's like fairly modest amount, and to make them safely, like you'd have to make thousands of them basically.
Yeah, I agree. I just wonder if it's possible. I don't know. I'm doing some soul searching right now because I don't know
Oh,
what to build, and I don't want to grift AI, and crypto's kind of dead.
yeah, no, it's our AI projects have mostly not borne fruit, and like we're making money. And well, actually, that's not true. Our text to speech product's doing okay, but our big winner is just like a very old school financial information SaaS thing. And I think there's a lot of people out there that try to conflate meaning and purpose in life with their work. And I have zero problem doing a soulless job, making $1 billion, and having a fulfilling family life or fulfilling educational experience or knowledge searching life. And at work, I'm talking about databases and trying to get different vendors online and all this stuff that's pretty cosmically unimportant. But very few people actually have cosmically important jobs. Very few people ever will. And some of the most important people in history are already forgotten. And whether your startup succeeds or fails, or your startup does something quote unquote meaningful or not, you'll be forgotten to history too. And I think, to me, work is something that really should be dissociated a little bit from, finding meaning and purpose. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, it
It's,
sounds like that Cal Newport book.
oh, I don't know about it.
Oh, it's so good they can't ignore you. His whole thesis was if you follow your passion, you're gonna be broke, and if you get good at one thing, you'll end up liking it. Like no one wants to be good at making, I don't know, like web apps or something, but
Sure.
or
Some people
database.
do.
Yeah. Could you
Some
do me a
crazy people
favor?
do.
Could you bring up OX Haxer? He has like a cat girl photo. I think he wanted to ask you something about AI.
Okay.
Oh, also, I picked up the Meta Ray Bans, and these things are kind of amazing. It's
Yeah, they're working on like 10 more generations of those. They have like a 2029, 2030 release schedule, control labs.
yeah. These things are like it feels like a first gen product still. Um, but one amazing thing that it does do is you can tell it to take a photo, and it'll describe what's in front of you. So if you're actually blind, like there's a pretty solid use case right there. The only
That's one of
problem
my
is it still
favorite
feels
things.
like
Can
a
you use it
Android
for
product.
anything?
Wait, what?
Can you use it for anything useful? Like you're not blind, right? I mean, what's
Well,
the use case?
I mean,
well,
it's for content creation.
well, I think that's a big use case. I mean, so I think Neuralink has said that they're going to do site restoration. There was a startup a while back that was doing retinal ML, and it's completely possible to restore the sight of somebody who's blind using machine learning, and that's kind of amazing. Cochlear implants can do it with cochlea, and I think deaf people will increasingly be able to possibly regain their hearing through machine learning. And then it's a very lame product, but we have like a little prototype of an EEG to speech kind of pipeline, and this is somebody else's work, to be clear, but it's it's a real thing. And there's another company called Whisper that's commercializing it and like going big with it. For us, we just play around with it. But
Yeah, but wait, like that does it work actually? EEG to
yeah,
do with speech?
it is silent speech. You in fact do not have to, and of course some people who don't have a larynx cannot make the sounds, but with the facial muscles give enough electrical signal that they can reliably reproduce speech. So you can just think of the word. Even when you think of a word like the word sword or the word cloud or cabbage, these words, your face will make these very small electrical changes that you will be able to hear. It'll run through a speech, I guess it's a CTC type model, and you can get speech output. And we do a little bit of speech API, so it's really fascinating. And there are many labs trying to get the words per second higher and things like that. Words per minute, really.
Wait, which product do you have that makes the most money?
We have a financial. I mean, we're a new company, so making money is is a all relative. But our best product so far is a financial informational terminal called Godel.
Godel. Okay, I don't see that in your link tree. I see the neats.ai.
It should be in there somewhere, maybe Godel Beta or something. We're not promoting any of our products yet.
Oh, I see it.
They're a little better. But yeah, we're climbing the MRR ARR sort of thing, raising money.
Do people using it actually have a huge advantage? Like what's the kind of information that you provide that I couldn't automate using AI?
Well, I think that, you and Wall Street are two different things. Sounds like you're fairly skilled. Many people on Wall Street are not, and they use a tool called Bloomberg, which is an extremely archaic tool that is, I don't know, it really was built from a DOS shell or from a Unix shell, and still looks like that and still performs like that. So I think we're just trying to make a 21st century Bloomberg. And then there's better ways to do it. For example, there's very little AI in Bloomberg. You can't make a neural network that will do time series analysis to recommend trades or factor analysis or anything like that. So there's a lot of deficiencies in Bloomberg that can be addressed. And that's a space I know really well. And, we're getting a lot of traction there. And then we're about to drop a new voice model. So I'm excited about that. Spent a lot of time on this and,
Okay, but voice model sounds even harder. I mean, there's so much competition in text to voice.
TTS is a very weird space.
They didn't the frog company just shut down, like Crocky is, huh?
Which one, Koki?
Koki, yeah.
Yeah, Koki was not built very well. We tried to buy Koki too. Yeah, after their failure, I offered to buy them, but the employees wanted to get paid out. Because if I bought it for stock, they don't get any stock because the preferred get the stock. And I'm like, you really should do right by your investors. Like if your investors could get a chance to get their money back, then help your investors. They believed in you. But the Koki guys couldn't get there, and the lead guy went to Rabbit. So he gets what he deserves.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to be taunting this guy for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and I mean, Koki was like the most popular, or like at least the most well-known project.
Actually.
But it was well-known.
It sucked. It was a terrible product. And, if you actually use their XTTS2, which is their best product, it uses this perceiver model. I think the people that work there, especially this Turkish guy who is the head of ML, he was very, very smart. And I'm a big fan of him. But the product wasn't great. And 11 Labs product is quite good. The big trick here is how do you get a really performant diffusion model? And that's something Koki kind of tried to use this perceiver model instead, and you can tell it just doesn't sound great. Diffusion models are really slow, but 11 has been able to make them work, but the price is out of control. And you still have this problem of you're still dealing with an HTTP call. You're still just making an API call at the end of the day and getting a WAV file back, which is not really what speech is. Speech is like a fundamentally alive channel, like the way we're talking. It's not like...
So are you streaming the response?
We do have streaming responses, but what I'm thinking about is a completely different architecture, which is like an always-on bidirectional transformer. Meta actually published on this some years ago, and very few people paid attention to it. But I talked to some of the ML guys at Meta, and it's not something they're pursuing, but it really is like...
Hey, but the newest Llama 3 also has a speech component trained with it.
Yeah, but it's still going to be a response request kind of thing, request response, whereas real speech is full of these little back channeling is what they call it, interruptions.
I mean, that sounds a lot like what the new OpenAI model is supposed to do, right?
It's still call and response, right? And ultimately you can do a lot of tricks to keep it feeling live and feeling real. But, you know, I do think what's cool about some of these models is you just embed audio and you don't have to have any text in it. And if you have enough audio, like the entire YouTube corpus, for example, you could actually have a stronger, just as strong as an LLM in voice-only tokens. So the whole thing can just be voice, and it'll reason using voice, which is kind of crazy. It doesn't need text.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see there's that anime stable diffusion startup that had to ban porn from being generated?
Which one? Civit AI or?
It's Yodeo.
No, I don't know that one. Do you know Civit?
What?
Civit AI, CIVIT.
No, I don't know. What about it?
Oh, they're interesting. So they raised 5 from Andreessen. They are now one of the most trafficked kind of AI, quote unquote, websites. I tried to add 0x Haxer, by the way, but everything, it just keeps breaking. So I'm happy to talk to they, them, but just need them to maybe try to connect again. But yeah, Civit is basically LoRa's and embeddings for stable diffusion models. And it's a community-based approach, but like the community is furries and hentai and like all this wild shit. And it's like I said, it's got more traffic than Hugging Face. It's literally got millions and millions of users. And it's just, most of the LoRa's and adapters are just like pornographic. And there's one of like this actress, Dasha, who's a friend, and I showed it to her, and she was like, wow, this is pretty good actually. And, you know, it's basically used to create, I mean, if you're a cynic, you would say it's used to create deep fake revenge porn, which is not good. But you could also argue it's, you know, freedom of expression for somebody who has some weird alternative desire, like the furry or anime or hentai community or whatever. And it's really fascinating because it kind of pulls on both spectrums. Some people obviously really love it. Some people don't love it. And it's this like very interesting company in a sense because it treats model makers as creators, which Hugging Face kind of does too. But it's more like a YouTube where it puts you front and center, and I think they're even letting you monetize and like kind of like sell your model basically. So it's a fascinating new company. It's not that new actually, but they've only recently taken money from somebody, and it's kind of interesting.
I see. I didn't quite understand the point, but I want to mention that Visa card and Mastercard and all these payment processors are like banning these not
Well,
safe
you
for
mentioned,
work.
the point is you mentioned AI porn, and I mentioned AI porn in response.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, I just wanted to say a lot of these payment processors are banning these AI porn sites,
Yeah.
and they're essentially killing the startup because this one was like the cheapest, like not safe for work model generator. And now all their users are leaving overnight after they raised 7 million because they can't generate porn anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
Why is it even such a big issue? I mean, that was also the issue with OnlyFans, right? I mean, why aren't they just taking the money?
The payment processor people are very, very careful because they have to deal with banks and they have to deal with all kinds of organizations that would not want to use the payment processor, although there's only 2 choices, right? But for whatever reason, I think one of the other reasons is that they can be held liable possibly, and you can't guarantee to them that you're not doing CSAM or CP. And in fact, some of the Civit AI stuff is borderline or dangerously close to AI-generated CSAM. And that's something that if you're MasterCard or Visa, you know, you could theoretically be held liable for facilitating or selling. It's actually illegal. It's a federal crime to sell CSAM It's also probably a federal crime to be any part of it, even the host. In fact, that's what they arrested this guy Pavel from Telegram for, where they're basically saying, well, you host a platform that hosts CSAM and CP and you're not doing anything about it. Well, depending on the country, including the US, that is arguably a crime. And so I think a lot of those payment processors are pretty nervous around, well, why should we trust your site, if it's, holding itself out as a pornographic thing, like we now have to take an extra step of trusting that whatever you're doing follows obscenity law, follows CP law, follows all that stuff. And it's just easier not to take that business, I think.
And any idea why we don't just use crypto to pay for all of those services? I mean, I'm not using crypto at all, except for buying my medical research drugs.
I think crypto just doesn't have the installed base. This is the kind of big lie about crypto that it's taken me so long to kind of figure out, is that the real crypto MAU or DAU is very small. It's like some of us listening right now have websites that do more DAU than crypto, like the whole crypto complete industry. So it's kind of scary to be in the crypto industry if you are talking about a couple million MAU. Like there are literally Lego fan websites that do more MAU than that. So, the Phantom wallet is 2 million MAU, and it's growing, but it's not growing 10x. And I don't see the average normie ever installing Phantom and using it, or MetaMask and using it and really enjoying it, or thinking it's a lot better than Venmo or PayPal or something like that. Of course, I think it is, but what I think doesn't matter. Are the normies going to use it? And that graph is growing very slowly. Even if it doubles every year for the next 10 years, I don't know that you could build a startup around that. And there's this huge overinvestment in crypto, hoping that it's the future of payments. Now, I agree that if MasterCard says they don't want to pay for something, and sort of crypto enables you to pay for it, that's great. But and it's great to just break the back of those companies that have huge margins. Those companies are not, not well liked by most merchants and things like that. They're very, very rich kind of fees. So in any event, I see the same vision you do, but it's nobody uses crypto enough.
Yeah, crypto's a huge headache now. You have to KYC to get any funds.
Right.
You're gonna KYC and then go trade on index. It makes no sense.
Yeah, if you KYC and then it's your wallet that buys the CP, you're going to jail, and maybe that's a good thing. But if it's your wallet that buys something that's, I don't know, objectionable, the government or the KYC kind of on board can see what you did and who you are. Maybe they don't care. You're just one of 100 million accounts. But ultimately, it is traceable. So where are you gaining the benefit, right? You're just going through extra steps for no reason. And I think that's kind of the way the whole Operation Choke Point idea of if you control the onboard and offboard, then you're basically good to go. Now, it doesn't count for people that are bartering, because if you somehow got crypto and gave it to somebody to do something for you or in exchange for a physical good, you kind of have this secondary market that's never going to be necessarily have to be onboarded or offboarded, which is kind of neat.
I was kind of hoping that smart contracts really get crypto hyped.
Those are
you can
tricky
automate
too, because you have these edge cases, right? Of and if you don't think of them ahead of time, you don't necessarily, get the benefit of the smart contract. And I don't know.
And I think this also gets into free speech concerns, right? Also with AI, right? Elon Musk is trying to make an AI that's a bit more free, ads as well. What do you think of free speech? Do you think, I believe that free speech could, fully free speech, could wake up some grassroots movements, like even communism, anti-Semitism, potentially like a full-on civil race war. What do you think?
It's already happened. I mean, the amount of anti-Semitism on this website is enormous, and it's not hidden, it's not policed, and it's kind of an ugly mirror, right? And I'd almost rather see the ugly mirror than the fake clean mirror, if that makes sense. If that's what society is really like, then so be it. Let it be the way it is, and let people share their feelings. It's better to have it in the open than to have people meeting with pitchforks and hoods, at night secretly. I'd rather see it in the open, and it's a
Do
shame
you
to
think
see.
free speech leads to peace and not war? Some people
I
theorize,
don't know.
especially like neo-reactionaries, theorize that kings needed to clamp down on speech, on free speech, so that they keep power and stability. And now, when you make something very free, what happens is people can organize, overthrow the previous government, then new people organize, overthrow the previous government, and so on, and it makes very unstable and warlike environments. You don't
Well,
think?
it's not just kings of yore. It's the CCP and many others. So I do think
Mhm.
there is a strategy of containment that results in stability. It's true. If you shoot every dissident, you will be more stable in some ways. But, is the net entropy higher or lower in one system versus the other? And if that's what we're maximizing for or minimizing for in this case, like the smallest amount of disorder possible, I don't know what the answer is, of course. I'm not a political philosopher. But I do think that even Elon, this vast proponent of free speech, wants AI models censored on this SB 1047 bill, or whatever it's called,
Mhm.
which is very antithetical to free speech. And I
Yeah.
like Elon a lot, and most people in the Valley can't and probably shouldn't criticize him, and I'm not doing that now. But I do highlight the seeming dissonance between those two things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know you have a guy that's the vanguard of free speech on one hand, but then he's also telling you all AI models should go through this California, you know,
Yeah.
uh, system of grading them before they can be released, and it's just like, well, how is that, not free speech? So, to me, I think that's a little bit inconsistent. So I'd be curious how he feels about that. But regardless, I mean, it's hard to live in a world where you don't have free speech. So I do think that it's like this fundamental human right. But I also agree with you that it tends to lead to a lot of rancor. And when you're able to fully express how you feel without any repercussions, there's still repercussions. Being anti-Semitic out loud and in public, very few people who are anti-Semitic on Twitter are not anonymous. Usually they're anonymous. They have some weird cloaked
Mm.
identity. They're not, kind of able to be anti-Semitic without serious repercussions. They might lose their job or something like that. And so I think that that'll sort of remain the case, which is good. But we have ways to go if society is really this anti-Semitic. It's definitely.
What do you mean by anti-Semitic? I'm mostly follow tech accounts. I don't see a lot of that.
Yeah, it's a tough concept, of course, to understand, but it's generally this sort of anti-Jewish sentiment. It's kind of like disliking Jewish people for various stereotypes, some of which include that they control the world, that they control the world's money, these kinds of strange, like Illuminati type ideas. And it's quite prevalent in Europe, as you know. It's probably
Yes,
more
and
in Europe
I
than the US.
yeah, I think you're right, but I believe this anti-Jewish sentiment is ultimately an anti-billionaire sentiment. Anti-extremely rich people, bankers, the Rothschild and so on. So it's true that in the US, particularly sometimes in Europe, anti-Semitism is an outlet, I think, for other billionaires to like say, no, we're not the bad ones. Not all the rich people are bad ones. Maybe the Jews only. But the sentiment is very similar, and sometimes these grassroots movements that hate on Jewish people, they end up hating on all billionaires in general, or even all millionaires. And I think that's possibly what happened in China with the CCP and with communism in general, and they assassinated like 90 million people, right?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think Jews have been blamed for a lot of the world's problems for a very long time. And I think being able to blame a group especially if that group isn't a large group or isn't powerful military-wise or something like that, it sort of makes it easy to deflect, like you said, from your problems or your issues and claim that it is all coming from some group that, you know, is easy to blame or easy to ostracize. And I think that's happened for a really long time. And the fact that it's come to America as well is not that surprising. But, you know, I think we are a little bit more tolerant than the rest of the world for better, for the better, for sure. And I think, but it is still odd to see like tons of my responses just casually using this website every day. You see tons of anti-Jewish sentiment, and I'm not Jewish. You know, it's just something that's pretty offensive to me, regardless. Growing up in New York City and being around Jewish culture quite a bit, it's you know, there's no, I think, truth to most of the stereotypes, and it's just frustrating to see it because it really is this place of stupidity, I think, that it's coming from. And again, like you said, it's kind of this insecurity and this like, well, you know, let's pick a more successful culture or something to blame. And now, you know, we actually are, I think, going to see some of it pivot or boomerang to Asian culture. Chinese Americans and Indian Americans are the highest earners in our country now, by a long shot. And you know, with Jews kind of, you know, it's a fairly small population in America, and it's not that visible. Hollywood is kind of one of these other tropes where people say, well, Jews control Hollywood and so forth, and I also don't think that's true, and I think in either respect it'd be changing. So I'd be curious if the same sentiment is going to start to apply to Indian Americans or other high achieving cultures, Chinese Americans and so forth, that are now, you know, the highest earners. White people have been delegated now to like third or fourth on the list. So
Yes.
like, you can no longer blame the whites for controlling everything. And pretty soon, you know, the huge number of impressive Indian CEOs who've done amazing jobs. I wonder at what point will that start to turn into hate? I hope it doesn't. I hope it never happens. Because
That's
if you,
why I think now that the U.S. has so many immigrants from other races, I think if people wanted to criticize the Jews, they would have to criticize every other race, and it would be like almost like a full-on hate
I
crime.
think,
You know?
honestly, I think they do. I think the people who criticize Jews also criticize other races. Pretty
Yeah,
sure.
but now it's a big amount of them, right? So it's a big chunk of the population.
yeah,
Plus, they are in positions like in cities and other places. So I think maybe it's true that the regular white middle class has been weakened a bit to prevent something like the Nazis,
well,
in
I
the
think
U.S.
you have like people like Nick Fuentes, and I don't know all their terms and terminology, but they have this idea of like racial purity of a white nationalist country, that our country should look like something. And just the same way you can think of France, or at least maybe even the same things that happened in Europe, where you could have in the past said, think of an Englishman or think of an English woman, and you have this vision in your head of, okay, this is what an Englishman looks like. He's
Yeah,
drinking tea, he looks like this. By the way, that means he's white. And now that's changed dramatically, right? There's a
yeah,
huge diversity there. There's a huge diversity even in France and Germany, although Germany is still fairly white, I think. You could tell me
Uh,
it's changed. You sound negative. You sound like you. Um,
a lot
but
of Muslims, but also very vocal, right? And like they call the attention a lot. They flood the streets. So even if they're a minority, they end up covering a lot of space and people's attention, right?
it
I think
does sound
that's what
like
happens.
there is a frustration from a lot of European. I hear it not just from you guys. So if anybody's surprised to hear this, I think it's generally across all of Europe, this
Yeah,
feeling, which I think is, I understand it. It's obviously a little bit, it can be unhealthy, but again, in the U.S., there is this idea of like we maybe should pursue, racial hegemony, or I'm sorry, racial homogeny, and I don't think that's really what America is about. But I also, you know, I think the people that are frustrated by it,
mm,
unlike, kind of Europe, where I think the perception is that the outsiders are using the resources of the Europeans.
right.
Here, it's actually kind of the opposite. It's the outsiders' talent is crowding out and making it difficult for the natives' talent to compete. And I think that's, uh, that shouldn't be thought of negatively. If
Yeah,
elite country, I think that's okay and not such a bad thing. But if you're kind of a mediocre white person, you might look at this and say, I hate this.
Yeah, I do think white nationalists might have some points, like they want to have some space for white people that cannot exist right now, usually. And I think it cannot exist because the U.S. has so many white people that other races feel threatened, right? Because if it did happen, there could be something like the Nazis. So maybe we can find a way to allow white people to have some maybe in Europe or maybe some parts of the U.S. where they can feel like they're just themselves. I think it's possibly valid. Other races are doing it, but without it leading to something harmful, and that's complicated.
Yeah, I don't know how we got from a challenge to race to all these other places. This was fun. Let's pick it up some other time. Thank you guys. I have to go home, go to sleep. It's 11 o'clock already. Jeez.
All right,
Thanks. Nice
great
talking.
talk.